You're listening to the Free Thinkers Club Podcast Network.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of All Factors Considered. Today, we're breaking down UFC Vegas 21, right? We just had a crazy card last week, UFC 259, the pay-per-view, and believe it or not, this free card, this one you can watch for absolutely free if you got ESPN, might just be just as good as that pay-per-view. So, lots of value to be had here, but before we get any further, obviously, I got to bring in my co-host, AJ. AJ, man, what's going on? I don't got no witty pun for you or whatnot. I just want to know, how excited are you for the return of Leon Edwards before we get started, man? Dude hasn't fought in almost 600 days. Give me some thoughts.
Well, it's crazy, Derek, because me personally, I'm not a real big Leon Edwards fan, but the media's been hyping him so much that you almost have to be excited for this fight, man. After an eight fight win streak, excuse me, and then, like you said, 600 days off, man, especially with the 3-piece and the soda back in the day, all this hype behind Leon Edwards is finally coming to fruition, and I'm very excited for it. How about you?
I'm basically in the same boat, man. Listen, I think it's one of these cases of out of sight, out of mind, right? And we're going to learn the hard. A lot of people are going to learn the hard way. Obviously, we'll talk about it here in a second. But this dude's no joke, man. Only 3 losses in his MMA professional career. So we're going to talk about it, man. But let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into it. Let's jump into some sleepers, man. So if you do not mind, AJ, let's go first, or let me have you go first. What's your first sleeper today, boss?
I love to, Derek. Thank you very much. And for my first sleeper, I got Jason Witt versus Matheus. Now, Jason Witt, the Vanilla Gorilla, he might look undersized, but this boy is strong, all right? A fantastic wrestler, and given the chance, he'll hold you down and make you pay from on the top. Now, he's one of those fighters who's position over submission, but he likes to throw in a little bit of elbows into the mix. Now, Matheus, he's more of a well-rounded fighter than his opponent, but he also packs a hell of a wallop, okay? Now, given that this match is a sleeper to me because we have the classic grappler versus striker leading off the night, and it's a classic matchup that we love to see, and it's time-tested, really, and I still enjoy seeing who wins between a wrestler and a striker personally. So it's going to be a good old-fashioned mix-em-up for me, Derek. How about you? Who's your first?
Well, my first sleeper, today we're going to go through some straw weights, man. And you've heard me talk about one of these fighters before. You have, AJ, and folks listening to the show, you've heard me talk about these fighters before, because let me just preface this. If you like Maeda Bueno Silva's performance against Martina De La Rosa, you like tenacity, you like how she just had that mean streak, you're going to really like Gloria DePaula, who is actually her girlfriend, believe it or not. And Gloria DePaula was inspired to join the MMA kind of scene and whatnot because of Maeda Bueno Silva, because of that shoot to box under Diego Lima and whatnot. So this is what you need to know about Gloria DePaula, man. She's a big puncher. She's not quite as technical, not quite as fast as her counterparts in the 115-pound division, man, but she has that crack, that same one that Maeda Bueno Silva got that really shakes the game up, man. And who she's fighting is Jinh Yu Frey. And Jinh Yu Frey, she's a fighter out of Texas, but she's a former Invicta atomweight champion. So this is someone who's about 35, 36 years old, who has a lot of experience, and she's currently 0-2 in the UFC. So being that she got a big left hand as a southpaw, she got nasty elbows, her back is up against the wall, and this is going to be a scrap because you got a young gun trying to prove themselves in their UFC debut, and then you got someone who's fighting to stay in the UFC to completely actualize their dreams. So this is going to be a scrap, man. This is one of the first fights of the night, too. So tune in, folks. Now, what you got next, AJ?
Next up for me, Derek, I got a hell of a scrap, too. I got Nasrat Haqparast versus Rafa Garcia, okay? Now, Nasrat Haqparast, he's a German-born wrestler fighting out of TriStar, so you know he's very skilled. Not only does he look like Calvin Gastelum, but he fights like him as well, okay? Great on the ground, small package, but packs a punch. Now, Rafa Garcia, he's an undefeated fighter coming out of Mexico and fights exactly like how you'd expect an undefeated fighter out of Mexico to fight. He's heavy-handed and walks you down and is welcoming of the brawl. Now, this is a sleeper to me because Garcia is known to bring the heat, and Haqparast is a rough night out if all you're going to do is just walk him down. All right, they're 2 very talented fighters, and this is going to make for one hell of a fun event. Who you got for your second, Derek?
Right on, man. Well, my last sleeper is Angela Hill versus Ashley Yoder, number 2. You keep hearing me talk about this, folks. It's because the fight keeps getting canceled. Angela Hill, she's just trying to get a scrap in, man. But this fight was supposed to be on the main card, got moved over to the feature prelim, so you get to watch it for free. Again, you know what I'm saying? Here we are. It's a completely free card, but this one's extra free being on the prelims. But listen, man, Angela Hill, 12-9 in her MMA career. She should arguably be on a 5-fight win streak. She dropped her last 2 fights due to a split decision to Michelle Waterson and Claudia Gadelia, who are not bad names to be losing to, but nonetheless, I think that she won those fights. So listen, this is a rematch, right? And I talked about it last week, so I'm just going to go over this one pretty quickly. Ashley Yoder, man, if she takes anyone's back, she can give them real deal problems, man. Angela Hill, she ended up getting the dub in these two fighters' first meeting, and it was pretty conclusive, right? But Ashley Yoder did have a little bit of success in the submissions and whatnot. However, that was in the Ultimate Fighter, man, almost like 5 years plus ago. So ultimately what you need to know is Ashley Yoder is a completely different fighter. She's got much more experience, and Angela Hill at about 36 years old absolutely needs a win. There's no more room for losses, I think, for the rest of her MMA career, unless she's fighting every couple weeks. And you know what I mean? With COVID and whatnot, it's just going to be tough to see that happen for, higher profile names like Angela Hill. But y'all got to tune in because it's the grudge match. And I'll tell you one thing, man, Ashley Yoder looking for revenge, man. They might be nice in the formalities, but when they get in there, it's going to be a real deal scrap. So we got Overkill versus the Spider Monkey. Come on, let's rock, man. AJ, man, that's it for the sleepers, right? Here, let me get you back in. Let me put myself back in. There we go. For the folks listening. There we go. Here we go. So, all right, man, that's the sleepers. Let's get into some main card, man. We got a lot of stuff to break down today. So, we got to go over these ones kind of quickly. Let's knock out these first couple ones and then really spend some time on a big one. So the first one is your boy, Eryk Anders, man. One of my favorite fighters to watch is facing off against one of my other favorite fighters to watch, Darren the Dentist Stewart, man. And I'll tell you what, spoiler alert, this could be a fight of the night. This has fight of the night written all over it, man. And my question for you off the bat, AJ, is that, listen, Eryk Anders, he's been out for about a year. Darren Stewart hasn't quite been a year, but it has been some time for Darren Stewart as well. These fighters know one thing, and that's to walk forward and brawl and bang and clash. And if you saw Kevin Holland versus Darren Stewart's last fight, if this is anything similarly to that, man, this is going to be one of the craziest fights we've seen all year, man. So who are you giving the edge to just off the bat? Before you really got down into the film study, when you just looked at it, you're like, all right, man, who really has the edge in your mind?
Man, when I just looked at it, just name Eryk Anders versus Darren Stewart. This is a hard one for me, man, because like you said, I'm actually a fan of both these fighters. I think no matter how the mix-up goes, man, this is really a pick 'em for me, and me as just a normal fan. This was hard. This is a hard choice. But if I had to give the advantage to either one, I'd probably say Darren Stewart just off of experience factor. That'd be about it, because they're both very well talented fighters, and they both can easily get a very quick win.
I agree. And let's just talk about like on paper, right? On paper, these are almost clones of each other, dude. So Eryk Anders, 13-5 in MMA, but he's 5-5 in the UFC. Darren Stewart is 12-6 in MMA, but he's 5-5 in the UFC with 1 no contest, but that don't really count. 8 knockouts for Anders, 1 submission and 4 decisions, right? And for Stewart, 7 knockouts, 1 submission, 4 decisions. So like literally on paper, you're like, this is absolutely a pick'em. However, in the betting lines, Stewart is the favorite. He's a very clear favorite in this one. And I think the reason why is because first and foremost, man, Eryk Anders, we know the story, and let's just, give context for really quickly. He's not just like a tried and true, started martial arts as a young kid and was doing this his whole life, man. He was a football player. He was an athlete. He's a Greg Hardy type of guy, right? Who came in and has actually had real deal success in the UFC at the highest level, man. But listen, he's been out for about a year partially due to a what he called a retina wrinkle that he suffered in his last fight against Jotko, which basically messed with his depth perception. So he's been out for a year. He got the corrective eye surgery. Now he says his vision is better than 2020. It's like 2025 or something. And now he says with his fight style, this is going to really help him because he's going to be able to, hit that target, do what he needs to do. He likes to walk forward. My question to you in terms of this matchup is that Eryk Anders has generally struggled with fighters who utilize a lot of movement. Now, fortunately for him, Darren Stewart doesn't move that much, but I'll tell you what, he cracks, man. He pops a good punch. Do you think, I don't want to jinx it, so apologies, but do you think this is going to be the Rakic Santos type bout that we just saw last week? Do you think it can lend towards that style?
I'm always hesitant to say no right off the bat, because it's been proven that can happen with any fighter, man. You don't want to get knocked out and you're just feeling off that night. You're going to sit there and stare. But I think the difference with this fighter compared to the Rakic Santos is that both fighters are so well-rounded in all the crafts, both on the feet and on the ground, that even if it does happen, so one of them does happen to get cracked, they think they have an exit route by going to the ground. Whereas Rakic felt a little hesitant to go to Santos's guards. Probably the same thing. They're both they felt more comfortable in one aspect, whereas Eryk Anders versus Stewart, they're a little more game to roll it around, I guess. And I think that comes down to just being in a little bit lighter of a weight class. Instead of the 205, they're in the 185. Packs a little bit less of a punch, especially when you weigh in at 185, but you're fighting at like 210, 220, So Man, I really hope this isn't going to be another Eryk Anders versus Darren Stewart. And I don't think so, because I think Stewart has a little bit more in the tank to pull out. Like, he can hit you some submissions like he did against Coconut Bombs, And even in the Kevin Holland fight, he proved he's resilient, man. So I really think they're down to bang it out a little more than the Rachic Santos.
No, I feel it. And that's kind of one of those things, right? That was my thought process on it, is that on the feet, man, this is damn near even. I'd give Darren Stewart a slight edge because he has a real deal chin and that power, man. When he hit Holland just the first time, Holland's like, ooh, okay. You know what I'm saying? We got something going here. I might have to close my mouth just for a little bit, right? But nonetheless, man, I do say that exit strategy is the ground game, man. And Darren Stewart definitely has the edge on the ground. I think he has a very clear advantage, which is why I'm favoring him in this bout. But I want to say Eryk Anders also has something that he could bring to the table that Darren Stewart isn't quite used to. And I already said Stewart could brawl a little bit, right? But Eryk Anders, man, he has this style of, he's going to pressure you. He's walking forward the entire fight. That's what he wants to do, right? And like, while that's totally cool, he has this ability to turn it into a true brawl. Darren Stewart will brawl at times. He'll pick his times to brawl within the match, and then he'll kind of reset and recalibrate and do all that. Eryk Anders, if he could just grind it out throughout the entire fight, I think he could win the fight, man. I think he could win the fight if he keeps it dirty, clinched up. If we saw Kevin Holland was able to put Darren Stewart, have his back against the cage for a big chunk of their fight, man. So, I mean, Eryk Anders is a lot stronger and his wrestling is a lot better. And he says one thing, I just was listening to an interview he did on UFC Unfiltered. He says he's a student of the game and he learned from his mistakes. So if that does happen, man, it'll be very interesting to see. But nonetheless, man, I guess let's give a pick on this. Give me your pick and why.
That's very interesting, Derek. And I never actually really took that into consideration, because I would say Eryk Anders does have the benefit in a dog fight, because Darren Stewart is a little more tactician. But regardless, besides the point, me personally, I'm going Stewart with the decision win, just because I think he's going to outclass him. I don't think it's going to be that dog fight. And even if it does, I think he's going to weather the storm and be able to go through. And I'm going Darren Stewart by decision.
Interesting. So my pick is going to be a little more counterintuitive, but I see two dudes who have never truly been knocked out, right? Darren Stewart's never been knocked out before. Eryk Anders, his only knockout was that TKO loss to Thiago Santos, where the ref just had to stop it because they're like, bro, I can't let you just get beat up anymore. You know what I mean? But that goes to show how tough these guys are. And when Eryk Anders says, when he got asked what's the game plan, you know what I mean? What are you guys going to do? And he says, the way I see it is we're both going to walk forward until somebody falls. And whoever falls first, you know what I mean? Like, that's the loser, right? So when it goes down to that, I'm seeing this ending up in a knockout, and I'm going Darren Stewart just because that right hand is something different, man. And this is an orthodox southpaw matchup too. So I'm going with the right hand and the kicks of Darren Stewart. Kind of killing the game, man. Give me a third round knockout, man. Let's hit that, and then that's money, man. So let's hit this next one that we got here, man. Like I said, a lot of fights this week, man, and this one is, I'm surprised to see it so low on the main card, but we got the return of my guy Manel facing off against Matheus Nicolau. Forgive me if I mispronounced the name, but nonetheless, man, Nicolau, he's making his first return to the UFC in 2 fights, man. His last 2 fights were out of the promotion. Manel, he dropped his last fight via unanimous decision to Alexandre Pantoja. And listen, man, I think that there's a lot of pressure going into this fight. So let me set the table. Manel, man, former bantamweight Ryzen champion, one of the best athletes Ryzen had to offer, comes to the UFC, loses his first fight against Pantoja, really more to a lack of output than due to, just being outclassed or out-talented or anything like that, in all honesty, right? But nonetheless, there's a lot of pressure on him now, because if you come to the UFC, you're the best that Ryzen had to offer, and you drop 2 in a row, man. Good luck getting into the rankings. Good luck realizing that potential that you had and the hype that you had around you. You don't want to lose that right now. So with that being said, it's interesting because Matheus Nicolau, out of sight, out of mind too, right? This dude has all of the intangibles and the skill set to give Manel another loss, dude. Like, this is actually a really good matchup. And AJ, I want to ask you this, man. Outside of the fact that Nicolau, he actually served a 1-year suspension in 2016 to 2017 from a USADA pop, which was actually a substance called anastrozole, which lowers your levels of estrogen. You know what I mean? So, like, taking that out of the consideration, right? What do you think? Why do you think this matchup was made? I thought Manel would maybe get a ranked fighter, or he'd get someone with a bigger name. Like, why do you think they made this matchup?
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Manel took a short notice step in. I think Nicolau had a different opponent, and like 2 weeks ago, Kopp stepped in.
Okay, well, I like that then, man. If Manel said, what's up, let's rock, let's do it, I'll go in there. That's even more pressure. Now I'm even more worried, because now I say, like, damn, dude, you took the opportunity, and while that is great, if you lose, like, come on, am I wrong here? If he loses, what are the odds of him getting a title shot in the next couple of years? Like, what are you talking about?
I agree. Yeah, if he drops 2, especially to Nicolau, who's coming back to the UFC, it's going to be a hard look for him. It's going to be a very uphill road going forward to the title. I think it does take a little bit of the pressure off of him in the fact that he's taking a 2-week notice fight. Because I forgot Nicolau's opponent, but it's nothing like what a Manel Kape fight's like. So it takes a little of the pressure off, I feel like. But I think the biggest pressure there is the fact that, like you said, he was coming in. Was it Ryzen or is it one? I already blanked it.
It was Ryzen.
Ryzen. He comes in Ryzen's hottest star and then loses because, like you said, he was just out, didn't have the output or didn't look as confident as he should when he was in there fighting against Pantoja. And to lose 2 after that performance is going to be really hard. And I just think as long as he keeps the pressure up and keeps putting up the pace, he'll go. But it's definitely a big uphill battle for him going forward.
Well, let's talk logistics. Let's talk, the X's and O's really quickly, right? What makes, in my opinion, what makes Nicolau so dangerous is that, listen, when he fought Luis Smolka, who was very, very tough, man, had never been knocked out prior to that fight. I don't know if he's been knocked out since. He probably hasn't. He was able to drop him 3 times in the first round based off of sitting in the pocket and counter punching, especially that left hand, man. That left hook just kept tagging him time and time again, right? Now, I think that's a very dangerous style for Manel Kape, but then I have to take this into consideration, man. If you can't hit what you can't touch, and what we saw against Alexandre Pantoja is that Pantoja really was only able to land the big kicks on him. That's all. And a lot of them, Kape was blocking them, right? So it was really more of you were just doing more, right? So being that I thought at first that the counter punching and sitting in the pocket would be Nicolau's best path to victory, I now actually don't think that. I think that plays right into Kape's hand because we have 2 counter strikers on our hands. So who's going to lead the dance? And if anything, I think Manel Kape sets traps so well. He's so experienced. He's so high level in terms of striking. We saw it, man. We saw how high level he is. I just don't know if Nicolau is going to be able to do it on the feet, and I think the ground might be the best option. Now, can you convince me otherwise, or do you think that's a fair assessment of what this matchup is going to be?
No, I do think that Nicolau's best option is the ground game. I mean, he started off in the Ultimate Fighter, had 4 fights in the UFC, left the organization, came back. So he has the experience of a UFC fighter there. And in his history, he started off as a BJJ practitioner, turned striker, and then now is all about that pace and pressure. So I think on the feet, if he's able to keep that striking like a Nick Diaz type, where he's just really putting it to you, touching, and then goes for the BJJ and then works what he's actually going to win with, I think that'll be his only route to victory, because I do think that Kape can outstrike him, especially in the pressure and in the strength of the hit. You know what I'm saying? Like Kape can crack a lot harder than Nicolau. It's just Nicolau, I think, has a lot more out there to do, a lot more techniques, excuse me. He's able to go to the ground. He's able to do different moves, whereas Kape was a little exposed, and I think more so exposed for his lack of willingness to actually have output, more so than technique. But yeah, I think the only way, and I'm with you, man, I think the only way is to get Kape on the ground and Nicolau to work what's comfortable, because he thinks he's going to get outstruck. I do think it's a hard night out for Kape, though. I think it's a lot harder night than you're making it out to be, but we'll see.
No, I agree with you. And one thing that we do need to consider, right, is that Kape, he wanted it to be too clean. He didn't want to take a punch at all. And that's, you have to eat 1 or 2. And in this high level of MMA, you got to eat 1 or 2 if you want to give that good one, right? But nonetheless, man, Nicolau, he's a former amateur boxer, so dude's footwork is legit, but he does have trouble establishing his rhythm against counter strikers. And I already saw it against this dude. I believe his name was Dustin Ortiz, man. Ortiz was kind of pushing him up forward, trying to just counter strike on him, and it was just really tough. He ended up losing the fight. He got knocked out in the first round, but not Ortiz did, but Nicolau did in that fight. But nonetheless, man, I'm thinking that this is going to be a very tough fight, and I think that this one could be one of those more technical bouts that people are going to be like, oh, so boring, or whatever the case may be, man. But if you're a hardcore, you're going to really enjoy this, especially seeing high level 125 pounders just going at it, man. So I'm gonna tell you this, man. I'm gonna go Manel Kape, and I'm gonna go by a decision victory. I just honestly believe that he's gonna be able to stay away from the takedowns, and that the head movement's gonna be a little bit too much as long as he lets his hands go. That's the one thing. He just has to let his hands go. Who's your pick and why?
I agree, Derek. If he lets his hands go, it's going to be a lot harder of a night. But personally, I'm going Nicolau, man. And I'm going Nicolau KO round 2, because I'm actually a fan of him, man. I think he's one of these fighters who he's comfortable striking with. And I'm going to bring this up in other fighters down in the card, man. They're a striker who's comfortable on his feet because his ground game is so strong. Mm-hmm. So even if you take him down, even if, we're sitting there throwing 1s and 2s and you shoot, Cool. I'm just going to hit you with a triangle. Like, he's not worried about the ground game. And even if he does get taken down, he's now even more dangerous. So that's why I like Nicolau as a fighter, and a couple others we'll talk about soon. But like I said, Nicolau KO round 2. It's going to be fun either way.
All right, man. So cool. Let's move on to this next one. We got a bantamweight matchup. We got Jonathan the Dragon Martinez versus Davey Grant, man. And listen, this is going to be a really good matchup. And I said on the betting show earlier this week that if you don't know who Jonathan Martinez is yet, you're going to find out this weekend, man. This dude is an absolute stud. 13-3 in MMA, 4-2 in the UFC, 7 knockouts, 2 submissions, 4 decisions. And he's fighting a really game dude. And that's the thing. Davey Grant, man, this is a dude who was training out there with Tom Aspinall and Darren Till up in SBG, Manchester, or whatever the case may be. But this is a dude who basically gets his wins by submission. 8 submission wins, 2 knockouts, and 2 decision wins. And he's coming off of a big knockout win against Martin Day. So I'm going to say this first and foremost right off the bat, man. One thing that Jonathan Martinez needs to watch out for is Davey Grant's left hand, man. He loves the check left hook, and he actually knocked out Martin Day with that check left hook clean in the 3rd round. However, if he didn't land that knockout, man, Martin Day was cruising to a very clear and decisive victory. And actually, he dropped Davey Grant with a mean head kick when Grant was just trying to close distance a little too recklessly in the 1st round, which then moves to my direct point of, if you don't know anything about Jonathan Martinez, the one thing you should know is he's probably one of the most underrated strikers in the UFC, but especially regarding his kicks. In his last fight against Thomas Almeida, he threw like 6-7 kicks before even trying to pop a jab out there. That's how comfortable this dude is with his high level of dexterity and kicks and striking and whatnot. So let me ask you off the bat, man, do you feel I want to kind of go through this one a little bit quickly, man, because I don't think this is going to be that competitive a match personally. You know what I mean? Can you convince me why Davey Grant would be able to get the job done against Jonathan Martinez, or why he would be able to make this a lot more interesting than I think it is currently?
Well, to start off, I'm with you on that boat, man. I think it's going to be a real uphill battle. But I think the only way Davey Grant can actually get a little success, and I think it's just naturally how he is, man. He's wiry. Yeah. He's a very weird build. He's very unassuming, small legs, small frame, but he's very aggressive. And what I like about him most, like I said, he's wiry. So you hit him, you hurt him, he's going to come back even harder. He might have been a little easier to get the win over at the start of the match when you just put him out in the first couple minutes. Because once you actually start hurting him and touching him up, man, he just gets more and more mad and starts to fight better. I attributed to when you're playing any sport, contact sport, you take your first hit and then you're like, oh, okay, now this is a game. Same thing with Grant, man. I think if Jonathan Martinez starts to play with his food, it's going to be a little bit harder to actually get Grant out there. Because like you said, in the Martin Day fight, man, he was out. He was put out. He got dropped in the 1st round. The 2nd round was a little bit closer, but still Martin Day was winning very decisive. It was a 10-9 for Day. And without that KO win, man, it was a loss. It was a loss to Davey Grant, and it was an astonishing knockout because he needed that win. And it was a good fight. But I'm personally, it's going to be hard to say any way that Davey Grant just completely dominates the fight.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a second, because I have one path to victory for this dude, Davey Grant, that's actually very possible. It can totally be realized. And what that is Jonathan Martinez he's a southpaw striker, and he loves to stand really heavy on that lead leg. And Davey Grant loves to chop away at those legs, man, the calf kicks. I think that'll be one way if he could beat up Martinez's leg and then get the fight to the ground. I think he could win this fight. He could truly win the fight if that's the game plan. Now, I think Martinez is too high level to allow that to happen, personally. And it's not like this dude is some unexperienced prospect. He actually has 12-4. He has one less fight than Davey Grant. Davey Grant is considered a true veteran of the game. So I don't think it'll happen, but you always have to kind of put that possibility out there, because expect the unexpected. That's the name of the UFC game, of the MMA game just in general, just combat sports in general. But nonetheless, man, the last point that I wanted to make out is that Jonathan Martinez has a 61% takedown defense, and he could strike just as good going forward and going backward. So I think it's going to be a long night for Davey Grant. But nonetheless, man, watch out for that check left hook. And he is a BJJ purple belt, so that's also something to be taken into consideration. So let's hit this next one, man, which I'm really excited about. AJ, I don't know if you're as excited about this one as I am, but this fight. Dan Ige versus Gavin the Guv'Nor Tucker, man. I'm a little disappointed because Ige's original opponent was Ryan Hall, and I haven't seen Ryan Hall fight in some time. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. But this is a completely different matchup, man. And if you liked what Sean Brady did last weekend at 170 pounds, man, against Jake Matheus, you're gonna like what Gavin Tucker does, because I call them clones, more or less, man. These dudes are like the same fighter, not really the same fighter, but they look so similar. They kind of have the same type of persona. It's just two different weight classes, featherweight and welterweight. But nonetheless, man, Gavin Tucker, how much, before we get started, how much do you know about Gavin Tucker going into this fight?
Before going into this fight, not much, Derek. I actually had to do a lot of research on this guy. Even with his last fight against Billy Q, who I'm high on, it was an okay match, and I don't necessarily think it was a unanimous decision. Sure. But after that, that's when I really started having to get going on him.
Well, so like I've been watching Gavin Tucker since the Wu Choi fight, right? So he's on a 3-fight win streak right now. He got a submission on Wu Choi. He got a submission on Justin James after starching him for a couple rounds. And then versus Billy Q, who I am incredibly high on, man. This was passing the test to me. That was the big test. This is an even bigger test than Dan Ige, but that was the big test because Billy Q is so unorthodox in the way that he walks you down the entire fight, nonstop pace, nonstop pressure. I actually got an opportunity to ask him about it on his Instagram, like what made you like go with that style, you know what I mean? And he had said, in my first fight, I was so nervous, I just decided to just completely put the gas on and walk forward against my opponent. And I saw that I went Goggin style, and I took his soul. Like, he told me that, and I was all like, oh shit, like, okay, I love that first and foremost, man. But then it goes to show you got to be able to keep it up for 3 rounds, man. It was kind of like Aljo Sterling. He tried to take the same approach, gassed out in about round 2, really. You know what I mean, against Piotr Jan, but that's another story. Nonetheless, man, Dan Ige, man, he has a 5-inch reach advantage in this fight, man. I think that a lot of the hype, a lot of the name, a lot of all of that stuff is favoring Dan Ige completely, man. But I want to ask you, do you think this is a much closer match than the odds are indicating? Because right now, Ige is a -150 favorite over Gavin Tucker, who is +125 underdog. Give me some thoughts.
Oh, it's definitely a lot closer than that, man. I almost don't even have Tucker as the underdog, personally. I mean, I think I'm putting a little high, or I guess I'm undercounting Dan Ige's performance against Calvin Kattar a little bit, because he was really outclassed a lot. And in that fight I was watching, it was a little, like I said, under impressive. And I really think Gavin Tucker is a hell of a banger, man. And he really, one of his biggest thing is he strings together a ton of strikes and sits on them. Yep. So he'll hit you, string these strikes together, see his opening, sit on it, and really crank one, man. And I'm a big fan of Tucker. I personally think, like I said, I think this is more of a little bit pick 'em, but I think Dan Ige's name and notoriety is driving a lot of that underdog force for him. What do you think?
Well, you know what, man? I'm biased because I'm already high on the dude, man. But I do have to sit here and say Dan Ige, I think that he deserves the name recognition that he has in the sport right now. Losing to Calvin Kattar is absolutely nothing to hang your head on. And when we saw what Max Holloway did to Calvin Kattar, I think that's why we get this low impression of Dan Ige. But I think that really just speaks to how good Holloway is, right? But nonetheless, man, he lost against Kattar, but he has a win. So he strung together 4 wins in a row. Henry, Kevin Aguilar, who's a very high-level striker, man. Aguilar is no joke in terms of his boxing and his kickboxing. Bektik, he got a split decision win right there, so that one was really huge. And then the biggest one, Edson Barbosa, man. 2 split decisions, so he arguably could be on a 3-fight losing streak right now, arguably with this split decision stuff. But nonetheless, man, it's going to be interesting. And I think that if this fight stays on the feet, I got to give it to Dan Ige 100%. And I think he has a little bit too much experience, and he has a little bit too much of that. Like I said, man, 5-inch reach advantage. He has a good jab. He likes to throw in, wing those hooks in. I think that personally, Gavin Tucker's best bet of winning this fight is utilizing his 3 takedowns per fight that he averages, right? Getting this ground to the fight and looking for the submission or the top control. I think that's the best way for him to win. But we do need to take into consideration that he only has a 42% takedown accuracy, and Dan Ige has a 59% takedown defense. So, on the fight, do you think that Tucker could win this on the feet? Excuse me.
Yeah, actually, I do. And I think one of the biggest reasons why I actually am a little higher on Tucker is because Tucker, he throws to actually hurt you, whereas Danny gets thrown to touch you up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And they both can hurt you. Don't let me sound like, Ige can't hurt you. But he's more, like I said, volume. He's going to keep going and then go about his business plan. But Tucker's actually throwing to hurt you, man. And I think one of the biggest things going into this fight is if you don't hurt him early and kind of get him a little scared, Tucker's going to keep coming for you, man. He's going to keep coming for your head. And I think that right there is what drew me to actually choose Tucker. And I'll let the decision, I'll let the pick out right now, man. I'm going Tucker by decision because I think it's going to be a drawn out dogfight where they're really having to get gritty, and it's going to be a lot of back and forth, man. And I think the deciding factor for me was that when Tucker throws, he goes for the head and goes to hurt you, whereas Ige, he likes to touch you up and he's down to mix it up any other way about it goes. What do you think?
So, no, I agree with you, man. That's one of the things I like about Ige is the level changes, right? Touching up the body, hitting you in the head, just kind of trying to play that Diaz style, right? Just touch you for 3 rounds straight, man. And I think that if he's smart, if he is the veteran that I think that he is, you utilize that 5-inch reach advantage, dude. You pop that jab all day long, and it's like I said, man, you know, it's the classic. The left hand, the jab, it's the bitch, get off me. You know what I mean? Just get off me. Stay away. I don't want no problems, right? And I think Ige will have the opportunity to have a lot of success in that way. But nonetheless, man, folks, if you tune into the betting show and you heard me talk about why you should bet on Gavin Tucker and why I'm so high on him, don't think I'm a flip-flopper. I just think in terms of value, that's a great value at plus 125 for Gavin Tucker because it's a very winnable match. But in my heart of hearts, when I'm sitting here and I'm making my pick and I got to affect my percentage on my accuracy, I got to go Dan Ige, man. So I'm going to go Dan Ige and I'm going to go decision because I think that reach advantage will just, it's going to be tough closing that distance on Dan Ige if you're Gavin Tucker. So shout out to the Guv'Nor. I wish all the best, man. But listen, prove me wrong. Make me eat crow, right? You know, prove me wrong. That's your job as an MMA fighter. So right on, man. let's move on to this next one, man. Next off, we got two fighters who, while they are very high level, I will have to argue that I'm kind of surprised that this is the co-main event, man. Misha Cirkunov facing off against Ryan Spann. I'm all about my guy Ryan Spann, but Misha Cirkunov, man, listen, he's 2-3 in his last 5. All in the first round, either he's getting knocked out or he's submitting you in the first round. There's no other way about it. But this is a dude who is 15-5 in his MMA career, 6-3 in the UFC, facing off against Ryan Spann, who I believe just lost a lot of momentum due to getting knocked out in the first round versus Johnny Walker in his last fight. But nonetheless, 18-6 in MMA, and he is 4-1 in the UFC. Now, I want to ask you a question off the bat, man. Am I wrong by comparing this fight a lot to the Alexei Oleinik-Chris Daukaus fight?
No. That's if I had to guess, I would also say that's a pretty spot on with Krishnov as Oleinik and Spann as
Daukaus. Yeah. So like I know you alluded to it a little bit earlier, so I want to let you handle that, man. I want to let you why am I blanking on the terms, man? I want to let you talk about how Misha Cirkunov is able to let his hands go because he does not care if he gets put on the ground or whatever the case may be. So give me a little bit of insight, man. What gave you that insight when you was kind of watching over the film study?
I'm glad you caught on to that little bit of foreshadowing there, Derek. And exactly that is Misha Cirkunov. He's very comfortable in the chaos. And when I was watching his fight against Jimmy Crute, that's exactly what it was, man. He was just comfortable in the chaos. However it was going down, he didn't care what happened on the feet or while hands and legs were being thrown, because he knew at the end of the day, hey, if this goes to the ground, I can just sync this up, no problem. And it was a really crazy exchange because Jimmy Crute was about to sneak out the back door. He literally was pulling a nice leg sweep going under, and he just caught in this crazy. I didn't even know it was a Peruvian necktie. It looked like a front head choke. I don't even know what it is. I'm not that experienced, but obviously Cirkunov is, because he was literally, they were rolling. And even the same thing in the Johnny Walker fight, man, when things are happening, he's a lot comfortable, almost to a fault, like when the Glover Teixeira and the Johnny Walker fight, where he's cool with just letting things go. And to me, that's exciting as a fighter, because when you're comfortable just throwing hands and not worried about staring in the mirror, and you're okay with being taken down, you're okay with how the fight ends like that. That's what really gets me as a fan super excited, and should get everyone else super excited, because like you said, Derek, he's big, he's strong, he's gonna work for that takedown, and he's also down to go out on his shield. You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't put him out, he's gonna choke you out. So you better end this fight early. What do you think?
Well, no, I'm basically in agreement with you, man, and I love that style. You know, I always tell you, the people who are able to just reckless abandon, walk forward, and do all that, and that's literally what what I wrote down in my notes. I said, Misha Cirkunov, reckless abandon. He does not care. He will overextend himself on his strikes, which is how he often gets knocked out because he doesn't care, man. And take him to the ground, that's fine. And you're only seeing those high-level Peruvian neckties and those types of submissions from the Alexei Oleyniks, from the Misha Cirkunovs, from these types of cats. And it's funny because when I think, oh, he's like Alexei Oleynik, I'm like, oh, look at this old man. Dude's only 34 years old, man. This dude's a monster. He's in more or less the prime of his athletic career. And but he's got a tall task ahead of him, man. And Ryan Spann, who's 29 years old, man. And people like to think of him as this plodding, big puncher, gonna knock you out and all that good stuff, man. But if you actually knew what you were talking about and you watched film study, you would realize that this dude could submit you at any point in the fight, that he uses all that power and he uses his striking to set up the submissions and things of that nature, man. So being that he has 4 knockouts in his methodology, he has 11 submissions and 3 decisions, man. He's 4-1 in his last 5 with wins over Sam Alvey, Devin Clark, Rogerio Nogueira, Barbosa de Oliveira. I think that if this fight stays on the feet, man, it's just going to be too much for Cirkunov. But if it gets to the ground, I don't think that Ryan Spann is a fish out of water. I don't think he's going to be in crazy trouble because this dude has a very, very legit submission defense. And he has also an 84% takedown defense. So getting him to the ground is going to be a lot tougher, you know what I mean, than it probably looks or than people probably think. And what's really surprising to me, and let's conclude with this and then give me your pick after, I want to know what you think about this. Misha Cirkunov is a -130 favorite to actually win this fight. And I think that's a little absurd, man. I think Ryan Spann, there's a ridiculous amount of value there on him. However, he is a slow starter, and that spells a lot of trouble because Misha Cirkunov, he likes to get it out in the first round. So give me some thoughts and then give me your pick.
I only think he's an underdog. Spann is an underdog because of how the Johnny Walker fight went. And I think, honestly, he could have easily won the Johnny Walker fight. You know what I'm saying? He just got a little on the unlucky side of the exchanges. Now, Johnny Walker did land some amazing elbows when he was standing over them, so you can't discount that. But to have him that much of an underdog, it's something fishy going on that one for me. Personally, I got Spann getting the KO win round 1 because I don't agree with the fact that he's plodding or he's slow, man. He's very fast, very explosive. He does start a little slow, but once he gets going, man, he's very hard to put out. Well, who are you going with and why?
Well, listen, man, I have to agree with you. I'm going Ryan Spann as well, and I'm going with a knockout in the first round. And the reason why is because, like I said, man, it's that's the perception. I know what the truth is, man. And I agree with that Johnny Walker fight. I always say it, man. I was like, dude, you cannot fight a power puncher and just shoot for the takedown and stay there. You can't. Your head is exposed, elbows. If that was me, that's what I'm doing all day. I'm elbow, knock you out, get you out of the easiest. Johnny Walker's easiest win of his career right there, just being able to take care of that really quickly. But nonetheless, man, yeah, I'm going Ryan Spann, knockout round 1. Like I said, I'm just a little confused why this is a light heavy, or why this is the co-main event, but it's probably because it's some big boys who's going to throw some heavy leather at each other. So with that being said, the moment has arrived. The return of Rocky. We got Leon Rocky Edwards facing off against Belal. Remember the name Muhammad. And I remember the name, man. I always have, man. This is a big opportunity for your boy, man. So first and foremost, I want to say this. I don't want to sound harsh on this. I don't want to sound like I'm out of touch with what the MMA scene is or whatnot. But I do think there's a lot of out of sight, out of mind for Leon Edwards, as I alluded to earlier. And I think Belal Muhammad's style is literally going to play right into the best possible path of victory for Leon Edwards, which is counter-striking. He's one of the best counter-strikers in the game. And Belal Muhammad, we've talked about this before just in our own kind of text messages, right? Pressuring someone is one thing. Not backing off a little bit, not stepping off the gas and changing up your timing and mixing it up, that's another thing, man. Like, Belal Muhammad is in your face all day long, and it's going to be similar, I think, to the Song Yadong versus Kyler Phillips fight, where Yadong just walked forward the entire fight, and while some people are like, well, he's leading the dance, look, he's pressuring, it's like, bro, you're walking into shots left and right, everywhere you go. I know you're going to walk in, here you go, all right, cool. And Leon Edwards, man, you look at his fight against RDA, you look at it against Gunnar Nelson, who's a karate fighter, you look at it against Cowboy Cerrone, who is the perfect partner, that's all he did the entire fight. Cowboy even said, hey, middle of the octagon, what's up? Let's bang. And Leon Edwards was like, yeah, how about you come on over here? He walked in, counter strike. It's like, all right, it's the easy bread and butter, man. So that was my little rant. I'll conclude now. How can Belal Muhammad make this fight interesting, especially knowing that his last fight was on February 13th against Diego Lima, and he ate over 20-plus calf kicks, that his leg was mad beat up, man. I don't know. I think he's still partially compromised, personally. He says it doesn't matter. Big opportunity. Give me some thoughts.
I think he took this fight for a payday, man. Because I agree, that's a hell of a turnaround for getting your leg beat up by Diego Lima like that. Because that was a lot of leg kicks he was eating. Personally, though, man, you sound like you're real high on Edwards, and I gotta ask how are you so high and the MMA fans not? Because Leon Edwards, he's big, he's well rounded, and like you said, he's mean in the striking, and he can drop some people with those counter shots, and he's on a 8-fight win streak. How is everybody so disrespectful to Leon Edwards? Yet he has a lot going for him. Is what I'm saying. He has that 8-fight win streak. Personally, to me though, not less than half have been notariable or opponents of notar. You know what I'm saying? So it seems like the paper's there, but not necessarily the substance for me. And I think that's a lot of why I'm going against Leon Edwards personally. But I don't really know, man. This was a hard one to me because when I think of Leon Edwards, I don't really think of action-packed, fun fights. What do you think of when you think of Leon Edwards?
Well, first, let me answer that question of why I'm so high on him. I'm high on him because I'm not the fair weather fan who just sits there and watches like what's been happening recently. And let me be honest. Let's both answer this honest question. If one of your favorite fighters got 3-pieced and sewed it up, you know what I'm saying, and didn't do anything about it, would you be high on him too? Probably not, right? You'd probably be like, bro, you just sat there. It's just like Gordon Ryan. I don't know if you're familiar with the big jiu-jitsu scene. There's this other dude, another BJJ guy. He was talking a bunch of mess, and he just got smacked literally twice. Like this dude just open palm just smacked him twice, and he did nothing about it. He lost a lot of stock, even though he's a high-level BJJ player, right? Same thing, man. Leon Edwards, come on. And is he this action-packed fighter? Yes, he is. But is he looking for the knockout every fight? No, because he's very happy counter-striking you away. And if you look at the Cerrone fight, Cerrone was super bloody at the end of that fight. You look at the Gunnar Nelson fight, I believe Gunnar Nelson was super bloody in that fight. You look at the RDA fight, I believe he was super bloody in that fight. And you want to know why? It's because Leon Edwards is a master of counter-striking and dropping elbows in on you off the break and dropping elbows in the ground and pound. So that's why when I think of Leon Edwards, I think of a precision fighter that lends to high-level damage because he's thinking precision over power. And we talk about it all the time, right? Timing beats speed. And then the other one that beats power, I don't remember what that is, but you know what I mean. Beats power. There we go. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, so that's why. Now, let's talk about, though, how I want to talk about this legitimately. How can Belal Muhammad win this fight? And my thoughts and my impressions are you got to be busier than him the whole fight. And that's something that he can absolutely do because we see his pace is relentless. So what do you think? What can Belal Muhammad do what's his best path to victory?
Yeah, sorry for getting on a tangent, not answering your question there, Derek. And I do think that's exactly it. I think Belal Muhammad, no matter what, he's just going to have to walk in the water and get wet. He's going to have to eat a couple shots, keep that pressure, and literally just keep going, no matter what, because history has shown that Leon Edwards isn't the KO one-punch dropper. You know what I'm saying? So you're able to at least catch 5. You may not want to catch 5, but you're able to actually walk through the shots. And I think the only way Muhammad is going to have to get this upset is by showing that he's not going to just back down from Edwards. He's not going to worry about the counter strikes. Even if he does get touched up, he's going to keep walking through, and he's going to put a hurt and a pace on Edwards that he's never seen before. He's been out of the ring for 600 some days, like you were saying. And I think what Muhammad needs to do is weaponize pace. Take a note out of the GSP book and just weaponize pace, and not just walk Edwards down like Song Yadong did to Kyler Phillips, but actually weaponize pace in the fact that he's taking him down, holding him down for a little bit, get up, put him on his fence, put him back, keep walking, and keep mixing up the levels of the whole fight, from the striking to the ground game to the clinch. Actually make it something interesting instead of just, I'm going to walk you down, you're going to walk back and counter strike. Because at that pace, Leon Edwards is going to just have an easy night sailing, man. But if Muhammad is able to actually mix it up and make this a mixed martial arts event instead of just a standing and trading kickboxing match, I think that'll be his path to victory.
Oh, I hear you, man. I hear you. I do just want to point this out just because I think that there's these impressions that we're getting, man. I'm just like, man, I went back and I watched the fights. Like I watched all these fights. And if you talk about Edwards not fighting people of notoriety, man, I believe that his last 5 is much more impressive than Belal Muhammad's last 5. You got RDA, Gunnar Nelson, Cowboy Cerrone, Peter Sabate, and Brian Barberena. And Belal Muhammad, you got Diego Lima, not Douglas Lima, Diego Lima. You got older brother, Lyman Good. You got Takashi Sato, Curtis Millinger, and Jeff Neal. And while those are all impressive opposition, I just don't think it's quite as impressive as Leon Edwards' last 5. And nonetheless, I just want to point out that when Gunnar Nelson fought Leon Edwards. His game plan was, I'm going to push Leon Edwards up against the cage and I'm going to take him down. The same exact plan that I believe Belal Muhammad is going to have. Strikes up against the cage, go in, shoot for the double leg, shoot for the single, get him on his butt and do that. And Gunnar Nelson, who is very high level, I believe he's a BJJ black belt, he got it put on him, man. That game plan completely backfired. And the reason why is because Leon Edwards has a 70% takedown defense. He has really good takedown defense, and he has a knack for getting on top of you in the sprawl and then dropping you with mean ground and pound. His ground and pound game is very underrated. And 47% striking accuracy, going backwards or forwards, very similar to a Jonathan Martinez, man. It's going to be an interesting one. I will say this. I just think that this is a better narrative and this is a better story than the actuality of how this fight is going to play out. And it's similar to, Adesanya versus Blachowicz, right? The story was much better than how it actually played out. And when we saw it, we're like, okay, probably knew this was going to happen. I mean, this is a big boy facing off against a 185er. So what are we talking about here? But nonetheless, man, while we, the clock is ticking down, we're under 2 minutes, so we can get some fight of the night picks in. Give me your pick on this Edwards Muhammad fight and why.
Now in this one, Derick, I'm going completely against the grain, okay? I'm going Muhammad by decision just because I had to throw a wrench in the chain, man. I had a wild toe on this one, you know what I'm saying? Wild hair. And I think the upset's going to happen. I can't really give you an exact, this is why, and this is exactly why I think that. I was just going over the notes, and personally, I just had a feeling on Muhammad by decision. Who you got?
So I'm just going to go the opposite, right? I'm going Leon Edwards by decision, but I'll tell you this, man. It's not like you're making a bad pick or you're making a reckless abandon type pick, because Leon Edwards has won 9 of his 18 fights by decision. He's won half of his fights by decisions, and Belal Muhammad has won 13 of his 18 fights by decision. So these are two decision fighters who are going to duke it out, man. It'll be interesting to see. So obviously, tune back in on Monday, folks, so we could talk about what actually happened, right? But nonetheless, man, fight of the night. Give me your fight of the night.
Ooh, man, my fight tonight, we're going real back super early. Oh, I guess not super early. It's in middle of the main event, and I got Jonathan Martinez versus Davey Grant. Mm-hmm. Now, that was either toss-up for me between Anders and Stewart, but I think Martinez is going to put on a little bit more of a pace, and he's going to put on one hell of a show. Who you got?
You know what, man? I'm gonna go that Anders versus Darren Stewart, man. I just think that's got fight of the night written all over it. And if you want to have an extra one just in case for the backup, man, you can always tune in to Angela Hill versus Ashley Yoder, man. Guaranteed to be a good scrap. You know what I'm saying? But right on time, folks. That was the picks. That was, the fights of the nights. We gave you the sleepers. We gave you everything that you need, more or less, man. So I'm just gonna say this: in compensation of all that is hard work we're doing for you, drop a like, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment, and let us know who you rocking with, and tune in on Saturday for the fights. And most importantly, you all heard me on a rant on the last episode or something like that, man. Watch the prelims, man. Watch the prelims. I'm telling you, you missing out on a lot of value on them prelims, man. But as always, man, that's it for us. Give us a follow on Instagram, All Factors Considered. All that stuff will be in the show notes below. But like I said, most importantly, don't forget, you right here, I know you still watching, drop the like, hit the subscribe button. That really helps boost us up the algorithm. But I'll tune in with y'all on Saturday for Fight Night. AJ, I will holler at you on Fight Night. And that's it for us, folks. Until next time, peace.